This is the Nikon F from 1959, which is a real classic camera. It is fully mechanical, no automation whatsoever, not even a battery needed for operation. All speeds are mechanical. In the mid to late 1950s, the popularity of rangefinder cameras slowly declined, and more SLR cameras came to the market. In 1957, when Asahi back then introduced their first Asahi Pentax SLR camera, Nikon and other manufacturers had to follow up, and so Nikon took the basic design of the rangefinder cameras, put a mirror box on it, and called it the Nikon F. That's why you can see the similarity on the layout of the buttons and dials on top. Actually, it was based on the 1957 Nikon SP, which I don't have, but I do have the Nikon S2, which was first introduced in 1954, and is also pretty similar in the layout on the top dials and buttons, and also the advancement level you can see. The similarity of the Nikon F and the predecessor, which is the Nikon rangefinder cameras, is not only visible on the top, but also on the whole body construction, which they look very similar. The Nikon F is a little bit wider as well, and definitely heavier. But also the film back is also pretty similar to open with a screw on the button, and the whole back side comes off. The Nikon S2 in this case, but it's the same on the SP. Also the whole back side comes off, but as it is a little bit narrower, like about 1 centimeter narrower than the Nikon F, it doesn't fit vice versa. The Nikon F also had interchangeable viewfinders, which back then a professional SLR needed to have, kind of. This is the plain pentaprism. Then there's the big and quite heavy photomic head, which also incorporates a light meter inside. The third prism was this, the waist level finder, which is definitely the lightest version of them. I think there were more other finders as well, like sports finder and magnifiers and stuff. But those are I think the 3 most common ones, the 3 that I have. The Nikon F does have a very classic look and feel to it. It is built really well, of course. Everything is made out of metal and very robust. Since this is a professional grade camera, it has a very satisfying shutter sound. Although I have to say the advancement is not as smooth as I imagined in the first place. However, it's still nice. And you can say 250. Having the option to change the viewfinder is really nice, in my opinion. But some of them, like the waist level finder, it makes for interesting perspective, but it is not very practical, because on a 35mm camera, which this is of course, the frame is really small, and it is, despite having a magnifier loop, it is quite difficult to focus. So in use I do prefer using the plain prism, as it is relatively light and smallish and still has a very nice view to focus with. The Photomic head does have a bigger viewfinder inside, and the light meter is of course quite handy, but I kind of dislike the big and chunky prism on top. So I prefer using the plain prism or sometimes the waist level finder. On the camera I have the Nikon S Auto 50 1.4 lens, which I think was the standard lens for this camera at the time, which definitely is a very nice lens, and it is very highly regarded. But I do have to say it is also quite big and heavy, especially when comparing it to rangefinder lenses of the time. This is the lens of the Nikon S2 of the Nikon rangefinders, and this is the lens that I just took off of my Nikon F SLR camera, and you can see the enormous difference. But you have to keep in mind that in the SLR lens there is a automatic aperture diaphragm inside, of course. And also the rangefinder lens is missing the focusing helicoid or focusing tab around, because on the Nikon rangefinder cameras the focusing is done directly on the camera body. So, and it protrudes quite deeply into the body of the camera. So therefore it can of course be smaller. But it also is lighter and smaller in diameter. So, and both of them are 50mm or 5cm 1.4 lenses. I did first buy this one, the Nikon F, from a shop locally here in Vienna, with the 51.4 and the Photomic head, which there are different versions as well from the Photomic head, but I think this is one of the earlier versions. But then I was looking for a different viewfinder, because this one is really chunky and heavy, and I always like the look of the classic plain viewfinder prism with a very triangular look. So I saw that on eBay those prisms, or on other shops those prisms are very expensive to buy separately. So actually it was the same price to buy this prism with a working Nikon F body from Japan. So that's what I did, and now I have two Nikon F bodies. And just for fun, I would say, I also shopped around and found this waist level finder for quite a good deal. All in all, I think the Nikon F is a really nice, sturdy and professional camera, and very significant camera in the history. It is also really heavy and big and a little cumbersome to use, and when mounting the lens with the attached light meter head, you have to attach it and then turn the aperture ring in both directions to the end, so that the light meter knows which lens you mounted on. But I have to say, there are really good alternatives to it, which are way cheaper and maybe also easier to use, which is the Nikomat, which is like the little brother to the Nikon F. It was also made by Nikon, and is also a fully mechanical and very sturdy camera, but probably not as robust as the Nikon F. And it doesn't have the interchangeable viewfinders. But the big difference is the price. So this is like a third or fourth even of the Nikon F. And just a few years later, like 1962, Minolta introduced the SR line of SLR cameras, which are also really nice and sturdy, full metal mechanical cameras. Or the very famous and also one of my favorites, Pentax Spotmatic, which was the successor to the aforementioned Asahi Pentax line of cameras. And this was a really successful camera, also fully mechanical, but already had an integrated light meter and very nice to use. And amazing lenses, M42 lenses still. And those can be had for also like a third or fourth of the price of a Nikon F. So all in all, I think the Nikon F is a really nice camera, and I'm happy to have it in my collection, and I'm also happily using it. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. I'm happy to read those and answer questions if there are any. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.